This is from the Telegraph. Chicken keepers must register to beat bird flu. Contact details, species, and purpose required under new rules to cut disease outbreaks. Now, of course, you know, we're very big fans of chickens here at Timcast IRL. But this is in line with all these stories about the restrictions they're putting on farming across Europe, where they're basically trying to stop people from being able to grow food. In this instance, the argument is because of bird flu, which somehow is all over the US and in the UK, you have to actually register your chickens. First comes the registries, then comes the chicken bans. We can't allow that.
Yeah, they always want you to be on a list of some sort. Right?
It's weird. And also, why do these know how many chickens you have? Like, this is none of their business.
It would be impossible if you had a legitimate farm, and I have a number of chickens, but I wouldn't even consider it a chicken. It's not a chicken farm. Chickens come and go so damn fast if you had to register them. Right. You have a bad fox day or a bad hawk incident. You have no idea which ones until, what am I supposed to do? A head count every night?
You know what it'd be like? It'd be like that book, Dead Souls. Did you ever read that? So this Russian guy, he wants to be like an aristocrat. So what he does, he goes around and he buys all the dead serfs, because if you have dead serfs, you still have to pay taxes on them until the end of the year. And so everyone takes it because he buys them at half price. It's very weird.
I love how they have just like the stock image of chickens for the article. But someone was mentioning that in the United States they were doing something similar. I haven't heard that. Have you?
No, I mean, and I'm not going to register my chickens. I'm not going to allow anyone on. I always joke about how the Department of Agriculture says there are 105,000 bureaucrats at the Department of Agriculture, and we have 20 million farms. So in theory, each bureaucrat only has to manage 20 farms. So I would like to meet my bureaucrat, but I would never allow him actually on the farm. I'm not going to allow someone to come and register. There's a couple things I have to comply with the FDA, and I do. I do a lot of DNA sampling of the sheep. We pull hair samples to keep their registry intact for genetic purposes. If you're going to register it as an official breed, etc. We don't sell them commercially for meat, so I don't have to worry about a lot of that.
What do you do with them?
I sell them to other sheep farms who need new bloodlines.
Oh, he's a sheep breeder.
I'm a sheep. So I mean, because you don't want, just like with chickens, right? You have to introduce new DNA, and so
that's why Roberto's King Regent. And Roberto Beaks III is the current king.
But you want to make sure that Roberto III isn't necessarily breeding his sisters and daughters. It's good to introduce new blood.
Yeah, we've mostly broken up that bloodline, and that's why we brought in a bunch of outside girls, and now he's the current king. His brother Scar is outside of Chicken City, so Roberto Jr. before passing had several sons. Roberto Beaks III, who's golden, became the new king, and his brother Scar, who has dark feathers, was shunned,
removed
to the outside of Chicken City, where he's in this pen with just two roosters. He very much is very unhappy, and he wants to reclaim the throne, but we're not going to let that happen.
That's why he's named Scar.
Yeah.
Could
you imagine, like in Lion King, like, we have two sons. You are Mustafa. You're Scar. Like, that's terrible parenting.
People really rise to their names in that situation.
If you allow the chickens, though, to keep breeding, that's where you get geese from. Geese are That's not true.
That can't be real.
That's not true. It's just Daniel lies. A goose is actually a chicken.
Are you promoting misinformation right now on our reputable podcast?
Yes.
You just don't like geese, like many people don't like geese.
Anti-geese energy.
I should have said pigeons, actually. That's what they are.
I think geese are pretty funny. They honk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's great. Chickens are hilarious, though. I've been saying that the cure for depression is obviously having chickens.
Animals, as a general rule, are good for depression.
Yeah, but chickens are hilarious.
Chickens are fun.
So Mr. Mutton Chops, for instance, is one of the roosters. He keeps escaping, and then he gets stuck outside, and he walks around like a little moron. He doesn't know what he's doing. And there was a fox the other day walking around behind. We could see him in the forest, and Mr. Mutton Chops is going to die. He's probably outside right now. He jumps on top of this little shelter and then jumps and escapes. Now, we respect it, because he wants to graze in the fresh grass, but now he's totally defenseless and clueless.
And they never know how to get back, which is my favorite thing. They know how to fly over, and then they run along the fence line back and forth for 10 minutes. And it's like, you just do exactly the opposite of what you just
did this.
But they are good for a laugh.
Imagine a human is like walking through like the forest, and they're like on a dirt path. They enter the forest, and they walk forward, and then all of a sudden they loop back to where they were, and they're like, wait a minute, where's the path to get out? And they keep walking in circles. That's basically what it's like for a rooster. Like the rooster jumps out of the pen and then goes through a dimensional barrier where it can't comprehend how to get back to the other side, as though the dimensions around it folded.
That's so funny.
Chicken sci-fi.
This, though, is disconcerting, and I do think it will probably trickle its way into America, is that they will find a pandemic for any reason to register, whether it's your livestock, your family, your guns, your whatever. And they will always use health as an excuse. And that's why they want to declare a climate crisis as a health crisis. Once you start talking about health.
That's why they did racism as a health crisis, because as soon as they declared racism as a health crisis, they said, you're allowed to go out and protest, and that's okay. If you don't want to protest, you sit your ass at home.
Yeah.
Only the people who are holy enough to go protest are allowed out of their homes.
Well, it wasn't like one of the goals of the World Economic Forum. They had this video where it said, in the future, you'll live in a 15-minute city. No one will go into the wilderness anymore. Yeah. They're building the Line in Saudi Arabia.
That's a creepy place.
One big strip city. They're actually building it. I didn't think they would do it. I thought it was BS. Because we've heard stuff like this before with...
Those must be
what was that
lucrative contract?
That popular movement from Zeitgeist where the Venus Project, where that guy Jacques Fresco was like, we're going to build concentric circle cities where everything is exactly where you need it and it's closer because they're in concentric circles or something like that.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Right. So basically, this is what they're doing with the Line. They're like, you have no reason to leave. Everything you want is right here. Step into the pod, eat the bugs. You'll be happy.
Well, Le Corbusier tried to do that in Paris, right? The beginning of the century, he wanted to bulldoze most of Paris and build those cruciform 40-story buildings, and everyone was going to live in them. And luckily, I don't know who the prime minister was at the time, was like, I don't think we should bulldoze Paris. And they actually saved the world from destroying one of the most beautiful cities imaginable. But there's always been this idea that if we can just control the way people live and keep them here, but the problem is you have to keep them there.
Well,
right?
then Le Corbusier did the UN, which is just like, you know,
and that tells you all you need to know about the UN.
But there was a period of like 15 years ago. There were a lot of architects who were trying to build skyscrapers that would have everything in it that you could possibly need, that had absolutely a zero carbon footprint, including like its own waste reclamation through what were called like living machines, which is a big botanical thing that treats waste and turns it into like, you know, the big garden kind of stuff. And it was these were big skyscrapers that were just gonna have everything in them, and you never have to leave the skyscraper. And every several dozen floors or whatever, there would be like helipads in case you had to like get out for emergencies or whatever.
That's horrifying.
Pretty horrifying, pretty crazy.
Especially if they eventually will lock the doors. And
right.
Like, now you can't get out.
And then you're just in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen any of those interviews done with people? There's 2 towers in Alaska that are kind of remote called Baggage Towers, and they're like self-contained cities, and it's just like, it's very funny to see pictures of them because it'll be like, you know, nothing, Alaska, very beautiful, and then you have these sort of tall city towers that are there.
Well, in Alaska, there are buildings where you don't have to ever leave.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, so this one's called Baggage Towers, and like,
is that the one near the military base?
I think it's a former military base, and it's named after a congressman that went missing in Alaska. Very interesting. But I was watching a documentary on it the other day, and they were asking some of the high schoolers who live there, like with their families, like, do you like it here? What it's like? And they're like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, I don't know. But they also talk about how they would never date any of the other high schoolers because it's like dating your sibling, right? Like, if you create this really closed and circle world, on some ways, like, maybe that is nice. You don't have to go very far to pick stuff up. But Libby and I talk about, you know, one of the hard things living in more rural areas is like you have to drive to the store. On the other hand, like, imagine how claustrophobic and sort of
I feel like you could
it gets
strike a balance, you know?
No, I think mobility is part of the human spirit, right? Like, as soon as someone says like, now you don't have to leave, that makes you want to be like, but why? Why don't I have to leave? And what else is out there? I think if you were to create these contained cities, you would either create a population that is really sort of docile and cold, which of course maybe some people want, or you create this other sort of more riotous human spirit that is like, I will not be contained, and in some ways that becomes incompatible with cooperation. I would guess.
You're 100% right, and I think it's part of the human spirit, mobility without a doubt, and the car is emblematic of it in America.
Yeah.
And it's part of our DNA, and it's why we rail so much as an organization about EVs. because they are not the same as a car, right? They're limited distance, they're limited, their the requirement for charging, their ability to be shut down remotely. The car is so much part of our rock and roll and our literature. It's just, we are a car culture. We're the highway culture. People go to Europe and they're like, it's so cool. They have these little trains and you take the train from Florence to Rome. But that's why Europe is Europe. And we're not. We are a car culture and we like our cars. Going back to the earlier conversation of why is the Democrat Party losing young men? Even if you're the most liberally educated young man, there's something intrinsic in your DNA about liking a car. You know, there is. And if you
Machines.
say,
Well, we're the people who built the covered wagon, right? And we said, we're putting all of our stuff in and we're going west.
We're
That
going.
is the original road trip, much more brutal. But you know what I'm saying? Like
A lot of dysentery.
A lot of dysentery. And look, maybe that's like some people's road trips. But that energy of I'm going to take everything I want at a moment's notice and just go. I mean,
it's part of our spirit.
that's part of the American culture that's very unique. You're right.
Can you get Oregon Trail on your phone? Because I would totally play that game.
It's been a while.
I feel
right?
bad for kids who don't get to play Oregon Trail.
It's still alive and well. I've seen children play
I'm just
it
over here
last
looking
year.
at like the line and what that would be like.
Well, the question about the line, which I guess is a question for the family, for the king. What the hell's his name?
The king.
Bin Salman.
Yeah, Mohammed bin Salman.
How do you get people to live there? Is it voluntary or
The
are they?
line?
Yeah, are they conscripting people to go live
Specially
there?
selected.
Are
is
they-
the prize.
There will be no shortage of people who want to live there. It's going to be hard to live there.
It'll be hard to find. Yeah,
it's going to be
like,
super
find
expensive. It's going to be an international city of
gonna be very
wealthy
richy
elites.
people.
Yep.
Yeah,
And people are going to want to be there because it's going to be the new.
The new Dubai.
Yeah, I mean,
Can you drink? It's still Saudi Arabia, right?
they advertise it with work-life balance, legacy-free urbanism.
Is there-
Legacy-free urbanism.
is there
because it has no culture.
bourbon?
That's fascinating. It has no history. It has
That
no culture.
is interesting.
Does
Legacy
it have
free.
bourbon?
It's not giving me those
I mean, that's
answers.
like the real
It
thing.
does have
Thing you have to lead
enhanced
off with.
livability, leisure and sports, vertical living, next-gen architecture, walkable communities, and environmental solutions.
This
The one
doesn't
that really
appeal to me
gets me,
at
though,
all,
is
other than-
legacy-free urbanism. I like the legacy of cities.
Yeah.
I like when you go to a city and you see that it's all built on top of itself for centuries, and like the
I did
old
this-
things about it. Like my great-grandfather had a pizzeria in Brooklyn that he built. My grandfather and my great-grandfather built the pizza oven. I could go check it out. That's cool. I like that. I like legacy.
thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.